But I think that that displays a certain kind of desperation on his part. And what I hope people saw, certainly Vice President Harris got 81 million votes to be vice president, so it's not like she's a complete unknown. But what I hope people saw was yet again, the strengths that she had.
So, I mean, should we go through it kind of chronologically? Well, let's start at the beginning because Kamala Harris kind of she changed. She seemed quite nervous at the beginning, and maybe that's to be expected. This is potentially the only debate that the two of them are going to have. There's many people watching, and she is obviously untested as a president. So, what did you think of her kind of initial demeanor?
Oh, I think from the opening moments of this debate until the closing moments of this debate and every moment in between, Vice President Harris set that stage on fire. She was so clear. She was so direct. She was so on message and on point with what actual Americans are tuning in to hear about, which is what are your plans? What are you planning to do for me? Why are you running for president? And point by point, I mean, in one of her first answers, I was struck by how the vice president immediately started talking about how her tax cuts for middle class families could be used for cribs and car seats and mortgages. I mean, just the sort of building blocks, the day-to-day concerns on people's minds. And then very quickly, former President Trump starts talking about eating dogs and, Hannibal Lecter and all the sort of old, standard, tired, exhausting nonsense. And really, I thought that throughout the debate, I really think that this may have set a new bar for presidential debate performance.
It's interesting about what different people in different parts of the world, I suppose, will remember. And they probably will remember when it comes to Donald Trump, him talking about, people eating cats and dogs. They will probably remember Kamala Harris saying to him about the size of his rallies, the number of people who attended his political rallies. But what about some of the stuff that he said about her? He said she was the worst vice president in US history and that in 4 years she had not achieved anything. Now, I'm sure you don't agree with that, but how much of that sticks in people's minds, do you think? People who are undecided.
Well, look, I think when it comes to Donald Trump, you know a couple things at this point. You know he's going to lie, and you know he's going to lie a lot. And so, look, I mean, obviously that's not true. The vice president has set a number of records for tie-breaking votes cast in the Senate. She's been one of the leading voices on one of the most important issues in the United States on reproductive freedom over the past couple of years. So the list goes on. She's one of the most impactful vice presidents in history. But I think that displays a certain kind of desperation on his part. And what I hope people saw, certainly Vice President Harris got 81 million votes to be vice president, so it's not like she's a complete unknown. But what I hope people saw was yet again, the strengths that she has, the strengths that she developed as a DA, as Attorney General of the largest state in America, a senator of the largest state in America, and for the past 3.5 years as vice president. She made the case, I think, so clearly, not just who to vote against, but who to vote for, and in particular, what she plans to do if elected president. I thought that was really striking.
And this is not related to the debate. This is slightly different, but there is still some kind of rubbing of heads, scratching of heads about why Kamala Harris doesn't do many sit-down interviews. And again, I know that it hasn't been that long since she became the candidate, but is that a weak point? Is that something that you would like to see addressed more? Because again, it sows the seeds of doubt in some people's minds.
Well, all I can tell you is the vice president just did an interview. I guess that was about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And when it comes to policy, right? Similar criticisms were being raised, and people were asking questions. What does she plan to do as president? She just posted a lengthy issue page on her website. And I think tonight you heard her talk in specifics about lowering costs on groceries and prescription drugs. You heard her talk about a middle class tax cut for 100 million Americans. You heard the specifics. You heard what she plans to do. And the contrast, of course, being on the other side, There's detailed plans there too. Project 2025 is a really terrifying blueprint for how to rip apart America's democracy and how to take away people's rights and freedoms. That's Donald Trump's plan. That's his proposal.
Well,
And
he
so
no,
you
hang
really
hang
saw
on. No,
that
no, he's
contrast.
no, he but he says specifically, doesn't he, that that's not his plan.
Of course he does. It was developed by hundreds of his advisors. It was released by one of the leading Republican organizations in the country, but he's never heard of it. Yeah, once again, what we know about Donald Trump is you just simply can't believe pretty much anything that he says, and I think on that issue in particular, that's a good one not to take with a pretty big grain of salt.
Just two other quick issues. What do you think of the Taylor Swift endorsement? Does that what kind of difference does that make, do you think? Does she need that?
Well, I mean, look, in an election, especially an election that's likely to be close, because pretty much every election in the United States this century has been close, so we should assume that this one will be as well. Everything matters, and the question is how much. But certainly, I would say that from the reactions that I was just seeing in my phone as we were about to get on this interview,
Mm.
to the reactions on social media, I mean, this is good. It took a good night and it made it even better. This is one of the most notable figures in the United States, and somebody who, especially among young people, is incredibly influential and impactful and can reach people who maybe aren't even watching a debate like this on the news.
Mm.
But they will certainly see that news come across their phones on social media. So I think everything matters. The fact that she did great at the debate matters, and the fact that she got this huge endorsement matters as well.
Okay, and finally, you think that she did great in this debate. Would it be wise for her to do another one should that arise, or should she take the win?
Look, after wiping the floor, frankly, with Donald Trump for the entirety of this debate tonight, I mean, I think number one, it becomes clear why Donald Trump was so afraid to do this debate and initially wanted to do it only on Fox News and only if he had, his hand-picked, moderators. And yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens, and we'll see if he is even has the courage to debate somebody again who just wiped the floor with him tonight.